extra hashgacha pratis that this get together is right before Shavuos, and of course Shavuos we celebrate the Eibishter's great gift that he gave us, that is chachmasei or tzaynai, his innermost chachma and his innermost will, out of his great love he shared with us in a way to connect to him in a very deep way. And it's interesting that the bracha that the Rebbe benches us at this time as a preparation for Matan Torah is Kabbalah Torah b'simcha b'pnimius. That although Chazal call the Yom Tov Zman Matan Torah Seinu, even though the Yom Tov has many names, but in Kiddush and in Shemini Esrei we celebrate that Hashem's giving us the gift. But here we need a special bracha, really, how are we going to welcome and receive the gift? And as women, we know a lot about being the receiver, being the welcomer, because Mashpia and Mekabel, that is our goal. And it's interesting that if we want to, as women, I'm sure you study this and you know it, and as females, I guess, we practice this a lot, that a true welcomer and a true receiver has to put aside their own agenda, their own ego, their own judgment, their own analyzing, and their own plans, and really tune in to what or who they're trying to welcome. So for example, as a mother, can I know her, they should gift me with a beautiful family and all different varieties, like my grandmother used to say, my flower garden. So let's say at the end of the day, when they're coming home from work, they're coming home from school, I can decide, you know how I like to be greeted at the end of the day? I like to get a big smile and a big hug. And because I like it that way, the best way to greet them is with a smile and a hug. So then is it about me or is it about them? It's about me. The real welcomer is okay. How does Mendel like to be welcomed? How does Mushki like to be welcomed? At the end of the day, when they walk in the door, and I want to connect to them, and I want to bond with them, and I want there should be a relationship, it's not about my agenda, it's about tuning into the other. And we know this one wants to smile, and that one needs their space. Go into their room, give them space, and afterwards, they're ready for the relationship. The other one needs food, the other one needs a punching ball, the other one needs an ear that they want to talk about everything that happened from the minute they left the house, you know how it is? So we really have to tune in to the other in order to prepare how we're going to receive or welcome them. So with the initial, we can understand about Matan Torah. We know that Yeshua gives a gift, right? We thank Hashem for the gift of Torah. So the Yeshua is giving us the gift, that's for sure. Definitely every single year, my Rosh Hashanah, Yaakov, it's Matana, Yerusha, there's another Sikha you could learn and study about. But if we really, the bracha that the Rebbe is benching us is to be mindful, how are we receiving the gift? How should we receive such a gift? So we have to tune in, how does the Eibishter want us to receive the gift? How does the Eibishter want me as a woman to receive and connect to the gift of Torah? So how do we know how the Eibishter wants us as women to receive and connect to the gift of Torah or Torah learning? What do? We open up the Rebbe Sichos. Because the Rebbe, Baruch Hashem, our Rebbe, Darashvi, gives us the tools how we can understand what Hashem wants from us right now, right before Mashiach's coming. So Baruch Hashem, we have clarity. And it's interesting, not much changed from when the first thing on record that we have, how the Rebbe explained the approach of women's Torah learning was, even before the Rebbe became Rebbe, there was a dinner for the Beis Rivka and the Beis Sara schools, because some of the schools were named not only after Rebbe and Rivka, some of the Chabad schools then were named after Rebbe and Shem and Sara. So in the Rishimus, there's a beautiful synopsis of the Rebbe's quote-unquote speech to that crowd. And if you follow through the Sichos, throughout the Rebbe's and the Siyas, and of course the final culmination as they punchline, putting it all together, the famous Shad and Sicha Shabbos Precious Emor Tashanun, you don't see much has changed. Maybe a few little things were tweaked. So I just want to, let's remind ourselves, what is it? What is our role as women in Torah learning, so we will know how to contemplate and how to welcome coming upon Matan Torah, how we connect that way and make sure we have it straight. So, of course, the Rebbe brings in from Hilchos Talmud Torah, a woman's obligation, Pasha, to know everything she needs to know to fulfill the mitzvahs. Now, that alone, like the Rebbe says, how if I mention know what women know, it happens to be a lot of women know this very well. I remember years ago, it's interesting for me when I moved to Crown Heights, so Rebbe Marlowe was giving a shiur every once a week in 770 for the women on Hilchos Shabbos. Now, I don't know if any of you, I don't know your ages, any of you had more core for 9th grade, Lamantas Malachos. Okay. And it was fascinating to me how she, in a very bakavadic way, she would ask questions for clarity based on her knowledge. And it was a woman, Lamantas Malachos is equally for men and women. And it was fascinating that even how many years ago was that? There's this concept of women having practical and in-depth knowledge, in halachas that we need to know. Of course, the Alter Rebbe adds and the Rebbe expounds, not just halachas we have to know, the mitzvahs, loisa say, or other mitzvahs that we're commanded to, but especially the six mitzvahs, right? That requires a deep level of chassidus to learn to really appreciate those mitzvahs, right? And those deep mamorim that bring clarity. What does it mean amunus Hashem? What does it mean achdas Hashem? What does it mean yediyas? What does this mean? It's for women, like men. This is a halachic obligation. It's not an extra for fun. This is for everybody, okay? To have the level of intellectual depth to really appreciate what those mitzvahs are about. Then, of course, even in Talmud Torah, it's mentioned that women have an obligation to give whatever support their husbands and their sons need for their Torah study. Meaning, a man has a mitzvah, just learning for the sake of learning. But here, we have an obligation to be part of that and give them the support. But it's interesting how the Rebbe adds, especially in Parshas Emor and other footnotes, that it's even in chinuch, because there's a whole discussion, what is a woman's obligation in the chinuch of her children? I don't know if you went through that sugya, But the bottom line is that the Rebbe explains this is davar apashut. Is there any mitzvah that says a mother has to feed their children? Does that say anywhere? No, because you take it for granted. Of course, mothers feed their children. It doesn't have to say. The same thing how mothers provide the right feeling and the right setting and the right approach to engage their children in their Torah learning. It's just part of being a mother. Like it says, Al titaish Torah semecha. Torah learning. So there in Parshas Emor, what the Rebbe elaborates on is nowadays when there's a weakness in husbands and children being excited about Torah learning, one of our reasons to have a more in-depth approach to learn, whatever it is that we have to learn, not just for kiyum mitzvahs, we have to, just from the obligation of chinuch or supporting our husbands, we have to know enough to be able to engage our husbands and our sons in a conversation that will make them curious and excited with their Torah learning. So that's a whole new level of Torah learning. If it's the Rebbe's sichos are different for Iranians, what did the Rebbe say? But in order to ask the right questions, to engage in a conversation, and have that strong feeling, we not only do we have to know the information, but we have to know it well enough to be able to, again, mashpia makabo, how can we, through our knowledge that we know, how can we use this to engage our husbands and our sons, and our daughters, obviously, in understanding and appreciating the beauty of the Torah, the beauty of the mitzvahs, and the beauty of what life is all about. So that requires a whole new level nowadays. That's not a given anymore, that the man is the one who's providing that for his home. And in fact, the Rebbe says, nowadays, the feminine approach is the one that's more appealing, is the one that works. The masculine approach would be the father at the end of the week, you bring home your papers and you test your child, and you say, no, you failed, or whatever, let me see your marks. So it's very straightforward, where the woman is soft and gentle and appreciative and gives that feeling of excitement. And of course, when we have the positive approach, which again falls into a lot of other things that it says about the feminine approach, right before Mashiach comes, that also is a reason to have a much deeper and richer amount of Torah learning. In all areas of Torah learning that helps us do this job. And then, of course, there adds two more little details. Of course, it used to be a time where women did not engage in any type of education. Women were just, it was hard in just preparing the food. And, because doing the laundry and whatever homemaking skills they need, the average woman, that's what they did. That's how society was. But now, Baruch Hashem, we're in a different world where women, where the females, again, Sfir Samachos, we're not going to get into all that, but women are using their minds for all kinds of educational purposes. Of course, Torah learning to expand the way we use our mind is also going to be a positive thing, of course, with the ultimate goal of having a deeper appreciation of our relationship with Eibishter and how we perform the mitzvahs and encourage others to do the same. Because learning only for the sake of learning can be problematic. We'll touch upon that in a minute. And then, of course, we have the final, or the thing is that when Mashiach comes, which is imminent, the whole world will be flooded with Torah learning and the knowledge of Hashem. It's a whole new level, like in a whole new level of learning. So as a preparation for that, both men and women are engaging in a huge amount of Torah study as a hachana, like, Torah Melech Chaim Zachu. We already have a taste now of what it's going to be like when Mashiach comes, where all day, everything will be taken care of, and we'll be able to engage in having a deep and rich knowledge of the Eibishter. It was about women don't really have to learn Torah, and they don't have a chiyuv in teaching their children Torah anyways. And the Rebbe right away wrote this fascinating letter, and I can share it with Mr. Shem if she wants to share it. I'm sure you have a group you can share it with. But the Rebbe said, reading this article, I do want to say, just as a side note, my grandmother was the editor of the English part of Yiddish Shanim, and the Rebbe edited the articles for many, many years. And when I used to visit her home, just as a teenager, like, I would sneak and sometimes see the Rebbe's edits, which were very, very fascinating. But listen, so recently I was like, I want to see those edits. You learn so much from them. So I asked, my relatives. But here's how: in order to get good articles, how do you bribe the authors? They get the Rebbe's edits. So she gave that was a bribe. So my family said, go into, if Rabbi Metzger wrote the articles, go into his house somewhere among, you have to go to the previous generation's grandmothers, or whoever wrote the articles, and somewhere there are the Rebbe's edits. But she was left with a lot of it that she edited, or the Rebbe gave her that she didn't give to the authors. So but she appreciated that she would never have to show them thrown to the garbage or into shameless, the Rebbe's handwriting. But to keep those piles and piles that she didn't realize. So she cut out all the Rebbe's edits, but we don't have the article. So I guess when Mashiach comes, we'll get that part also. So I wanted to see this article. I'm sure it's in the finished product. But here the Rebbe says whoever wrote this article missed the point, because when you read it, it sounds like women don't have to know anything in Torah, and they don't have to have the chinuch for their children. It's all upon the man, and the Rebbe really requests them to rewrite the whole thing for accuracy. And here in this place, and the Rebbe spoke in this. You learn this on your own. How the Rebbe says very clearly the women's role in not only Torah learning for themselves, but Torah learning in the chinuch. But the second letter has I want to write something from this. There are two letters printed in this. There's two words over here, three words that really caught my eye. So here, the Rebbe is writing a letter to a woman that really loved Torah learning, to the point that unfortunately she neglected her household duties. I can imagine. It's interesting, I don't know if any of you teach the pre-1A, so you have to read, what does your mother do all day? So my son, he was 5 years old, she sits on the couch and she reads books. Okay. Anyways, so here, of course, the Rebbe makes a whole preface that there's male roles and there's female roles, and the female role is a keres habayis. And we have to do our role as a keres habayis b'simcha, because that's the role Hashem gave us to do. And if the Torah learning we're being neglectful of our first and foremost duty, then that's a negative, it's not a positive. So the Rebbe says the remedy for that is speak to your father, whoever her father was, or speak to your friends, figure out what the right balance is, because there's not a one size fits all. Every person is different. How much you should throw yourself into that Torah study that for you makes you feel, it's what you like to do, and how much you have to make sure your family's doing okay. But then the Rebbe says this added point. So again, in Mr. Shem, some of you are already running families. Mr. Shem very soon will run families. You'll be zeicha. So sometimes when you have the geschmack of Torah learning, and we have to all of a sudden do everyday work, it could be, you have to figure out that balance. But the Rebbe doesn't say to do it instead, but to have the right balance. But the Rebbe adds, how the Rebbe says there's hatzlach and money, like you can have a lot of money, or little money, but there's atzlacha how the money will be spent. And the same thing with time. I added my own with sleep. It's my own thing that your Rebbe said. You can have atzlacha to your sleep, or you can have not atzlacha to your sleep, depending on what to do. But here the Rebbe says, Torah and mitzvahs are connected. If you're going to do your role as a woman, your Torah study will be gebenched. You'll be able to understand things quicker and easier. Isn't that amazing? I never saw this before. So that means you don't have to spend that many hours to get the job done, because if you do what you need to do as a wife and a mother, your Torah learning will have a special bracha that you'll get there faster. She wanted to come to the Rebbe for Yom Tov, I think it was Pesach, could you imagine? Because she had such a strong desire to connect to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe said the job, Pesach is a time for family. Yeah, you're a wife, you're a mother, and that's where you belong. And sometimes you may forget about that. So these are two fascinating letters. I just want to add one more little detail, and this is from Pirkei Avos, Keser Shem Tov Ola Akaveim. So Rashum Barichai, right? Who was Teresa Nosli, his whole life was Torah learning day and night, and that level of Torah learning makes the obligation of, let's say, davening or other things much, much less, because somebody who's truly immersed in Torah learning 24/7. And the Rebbe explains that everybody needs to have an element of that they take a time of the day where they're totally immersed in Torah learning. Why? Because when we connect to the Eibishter that's behind the Torah, we have the koyach to be able to straddle both sides of the fence. That we can have an intense feeling of connection to the Eibishter, but at the same time, we could bring it down to earth and do what we need to do. That's our goal in a Dirab Tachtainim. And that even when somebody begins Torah study, how do we know that the Torah study is a positive? If we do it for our own ego, for our own enjoyment of knowledge, that for sure is a negative. But we do it because, again, we are connecting to the Eibishter this way and helping others to do so and to our mission on earth. Then, Keser Shem Tov, which is the siman of how it will affect the world around us, then we know that the Torah learning is true. So I want to give each all a bracha, that we should be able to welcome and receive not just the way the Eibishter wants us to connect to Torah and help the Yidden around us connect to Torah, but I'm really looking forward to the Torah Chadash Iti Tetzei. I'm not sure this time I'm ready today to sit down. Could you imagine? There'll be this massive I bring in, and all of us will say, yeah, that sounds familiar. I remember learning it. I remember, wow, this is amazing. That's what the Rebbe says. We'll say, and I'm sure everybody in this room was very prepared. We should all be able to see it with our own eyes. And Mazel Tov to all of you. It's a phenomenal thing. And it's a big source for me to be here today, so thank you.